The research vessel Quantitative Curiosity hung in the vast emptiness of interstellar space like an oversized crystalline jellyfish, its bioorganic hull pulsing with subtle bioluminescent communications. Inside its central research chamber, Dr. Remis Krell was having what could charitably be described as an existential crisis of pure scientific proportions. Krell belonged to the Nexarian species, a highly evolved collective of quantum adaptive intelligences that typically processed information with such mathematical precision that emotion was considered a primitive computational error. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, his body was a complex lattice of translucent biocrystalline structures that shifted and realigned continuously, reflecting his thought processes in real time. Each molecular reconfiguration represented a microcalculation, a neural network so intricate that most other species would consider it pure magic. Preliminary human consumption data compilation, he announced to the assembled research team, his voice a melodic harmonic that translated simultaneously across 17 linguistic matrices, is nothing short of a comprehensive demolition of everything we understand about biological survival. The research team represented a carefully curated selection of the Galactic Academic Consortium's most promising xenobiological specialists. To Krell's immediate left stood junior researcher Mira Volnek, a chromatic, a species that communicated through complex bioluminescent color shifts and molecular vibrations. Her current display was a mesmerizing blend of amber, deep emerald, and occasional sparks of crimson, indicating a mixture of scientific excitement, profound confusion, and underlying anxiety. To Krell's right, senior computational analyst Joran Rix maintained a more stoic demeanor. A silicon-based intelligence from the rigid collective, Rix processed information through a series of quantum-entangled neural networks that made traditional computing look like children's mathematics. His contribution to the team was pure analytical precision, where Krell provided intuitive leaps and Mira offered empathetic research perspectives. Rix calculated probabilities with machine-like perfection. Let me be explicitly clear, Krell continued, manipulating the holographic display with a series of graceful tentacular movements. Humans represent a biological anomaly that defies every known scientific classification in our galactic database. The holographic projection expanded, revealing an intricate web of molecular interactions, toxicity charts and behavioral analysis. Hundreds of substances were color-coded and annotated, each representing a potential threat to biological integrity. Alcohol, a neurotoxic compound that systematically impaired cognitive function and motor control. For 1,247 known sentient species, consumption would result in immediate systemic shutdown. Humans, they invented entire social rituals around its consumption. Capsaicin, a molecular structure so aggressive it triggered pain receptors across multiple sensory systems. Most species would experience cellular trauma and immediate defensive responses. Humans created entire culinary traditions celebrating its intensity, hosting competitions to consume progressively more destructive pepper variants. Caffeine, a stimulant so potent it would cause neural cascade failures in 98.7% of known biological systems. Humans, they transformed it into a morning ritual, consuming it in quantities that would liquefy most organic neural networks. Statistical improbability, Rix interjected, his voice a precise algorithmic tone, suggests these consumption patterns indicate either a massive evolutionary adaptation or a species-wide collective psychosis. Mira's bioluminescent display flickered rapidly, a complex translation that roughly meant, or they're just spectacularly magnificently insane. Krell's crystalline structure momentarily fractured and realigned, the Nexarian equivalent of a sardonic laugh. Precisely. We are not merely studying a biological entity, we are documenting what might be the most adaptable inexplicable species in documented galactic history. The research had begun innocuously enough. A routine xenobiological survey had flagged Earth as a potential study subject, a small seemingly insignificant blue-green planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Initial satellite and communication intercepts suggested a species in technological adolescence, capable of complex communication, developing space exploration capabilities, but still fundamentally tribal and chaotic. No one anticipated the scientific marvel they would uncover. Our primary objective, Krell explained, his crystalline structure casting prismatic reflections across the research chamber, is to comprehensively document human biological and cultural adaptability within potentially hazardous environmental conditions. We are not here to interfere, we are here to understand. The unspoken subtext hung in the air, and possibly protect the rest of the galaxy from whatever magnificent evolutionary wildcard humans represented. Mira's color shifted to a contemplative azure. Are we certain they're not some form of elaborate performance experiment? A species-wide demonstration of biological improbability. Rix's response was immediate and mathematically precise. Probability of intentional performance, 0.003%. Probability of genuine biological anomaly, 99.997%. Humans remained entirely unaware they were the subjects of the most comprehensive xenobiological study ever conducted. They would continue their remarkable inexplicable existence, consuming, adapting, surviving completely oblivious to the galaxy watching them with a mixture of horror, fascination and grudging respect. The comprehensive database of human consumable toxic substances took 3 full planetary rotations to compile. What began as a straightforward toxicological study quickly devolved into what senior researcher Krell would later describe as the most bewildering scientific document in galactic academic history. Mira Volnik's workstation looked like a nightmare of holographic projections, each molecular structure spinning and pulsing with a complexity that would make most species' neural networks short-circuit. Her bioluminescent tendrils flickered between shades of absolute fascination and scientific horror. Preliminary categorization complete, she announced, her voice translated through the ship's linguistic matrix with a tone that suggested she was simultaneously impressed and mildly traumatized. The list was nothing short of extraordinary. Category A: chemical compounds humans voluntarily consume that would obliterate other biological systems. Alcohol, ethanol. Molecular toxicity rating, 9.7/10. Immediate effects on 1,247 known sentient species. Cellular destruction. Human response, social ritual, recreational consumption, apparent enjoyment. Subcategories discovered: beer, fermented grain liquid with 3 to 7% ethanol concentration, wine, fermented fruit liquid with 10 to 15% ethanol concentration, spirits, distilled liquids reaching 40 to 60% ethanol concentration. Most alarming discovery: humans create entire social hierarchies and interaction protocols around the consumption of these cellular destruction liquids. They gather in specialized architectural structures called bars and pubs, specifically to consume substances that would render most species unconscious or deceased. Capsaicin. Spicy compounds, molecular aggression index, 8.9/10. Typical biological response, extreme pain, cellular defensive mechanisms. Human response, culinary celebration, competitive consumption. Subcategories of spice intensity: mild spice, bell peppers, 0 µ, medium spice, jalapenos, 2,500 µ, 8,000 Scoville units, extreme spice, Carolina Reaper peppers, 1,569,300 µ, 2,200, 000 Scoville units. Most incomprehensible observation: humans host competitive eating events specifically designed to consume increasingly painful pepper variants. They willingly subject themselves to molecular compounds that trigger maximum pain receptors and celebrate this experience. Caffeine. Neurological disruption potential, 9.2/10. Standard biological impact, neural network collapse. Human response, daily consumption, productivity enhancement. Delivery methods: coffee, hot liquid extract from roasted plant seeds, energy drinks, synthetic liquid with concentrated caffeine, tea, another plant-based caffeine delivery system. Most bizarre finding: humans have developed entire economic and social structures around the procurement and consumption of this neural stimulant. They create specialized architectural spaces called coffee shops dedicated to its consumption. Category B: substances that should theoretically kill biological organisms, but somehow do not. Processed meats. Carcinogen concentration, astronomical. Recommended consumption for most species, 0. Human response, regular dietary inclusion. Subcategories: hot dogs, compressed meat byproducts, bacon, preserved pork product with extreme sodium and fat content, spam, compressed meat product with questionable nutritional value, artificial sweeteners, chemical complexity, unprecedented molecular instability, high human response, widespread consumption. We are not, Rix interjected, his silicon-based neural networks processing the data with mathematical precision, dealing with a conventional biological entity. We are documenting a species that appears to have weaponized dietary consumption as a form of evolutionary adaptation. Krell's crystalline structure pulsed with what could only be described as scientific excitement. The humans were not just surviving these substances, they were thriving. Mira's bioluminescent display cycled through colors, representing various emotional and intellectual states: confusion, admiration, horror, and a weird sort of respect. They're either the most resilient species in the galaxy, or completely magnificently insane. Why not both? Krell responded, his tentacular appendages manipulating the holographic data with a grace that suggested decades of research. The truly terrifying revelation was not just that humans consumed these substances, but that they had transformed potentially lethal compounds into cultural experiences. Drinking was not just consumption, it was social bonding. Spicy food was not just nutrition, it was a competitive sport. Caffeine was not just a stimulant, it was a morning ritual that structured entire societal functions. Humanity had taken the concept of biological survival and transformed it into something that defied every known scientific classification, and they were just getting started. The observation module of the research vessel Quantitative Curiosity was a marvel of galactic engineering, a near-perfect camouflage system that allowed the research team to observe human behavior with microscopic precision. Designed to look like nothing more than a collection of atmospheric particulates, the module could hover inches from human activity without detection. Dr. or Miss Krell had positioned their primary observation point at what humans called a sports bar, a curious cultural nexus that seemed to combine multiple fascinating human behaviors simultaneously. Optimal location for comprehensive behavioral analysis, Rix announced, his quantum computational matrix already processing potential interaction scenarios at 10 million calculations per millisecond. Maximum population density, minimal individual awareness of external observation. Mira Volmek's bioluminescent tendrils were practically vibrating with anticipation. As the team's xenosociological specialist, she was particularly fascinated by the complex social rituals humans seemed to perform around food and drink consumption. The first subject of intense scrutiny, alcohol consumption. Their initial research had categorized alcohol as a neural toxin so potent it would cause immediate systemic collapse in 1,247 known sentient species. Humans, by contrast, had transformed it into an elaborate social ritual. The specimen under immediate observation was a human male, approximately 28 Ms and 32 Earth years old, wearing what appeared to be a garment displaying allegiance to a local athletic collective. He was consuming a golden-colored liquid from a glass beer. Their previous research had identified it as, observe, Krell narrated for the ship's research log, his crystalline structure shifting into complex analytical patterns. The human appears to be voluntarily consuming a substance that would reduce most biological systems to cellular pudding. The human took a long drink, then another. Rix's computational matrix went into overdrive. Calculations suggest this individual has now consumed 0.4 liters of a compound with 5.2% ethanol concentration. Projected outcome in 99.7% of known species, complete neural network failure. The human laughed, ordered another drink. Mira's bioluminescent display cycled through a stunning array of colors representing pure scientific confusion. Her translated commentary appeared on the observation module's linguistic interface. Are they actually enjoying cellular destruction? But it wasn't just alcohol that defied scientific understanding. Across the room, another human was consuming what their preliminary research had identified as hot wings, a culinary invention that seemed to deliberately trigger maximum pain receptors. The wings were coated in a sauce so intense that their molecular scanning revealed a capsaicin concentration that would cause immediate neural trauma in most species. The human not only consumed the wings, but appeared to be competing with nearby companions to consume the most intensely spiced variant. Capsaicin concentration, Rix calculated, exceeds recommended safety thresholds by 647%. Predicted biological response, extreme pain, potential cellular damage. The human's response, laughter, sweat, another bite. They're not just consuming the substance, Krell observed, his crystalline structure pulsing with academic excitement. They're treating molecular pain as a form of entertainment. A nearby female human joined the wing-consuming ritual. She selected an even more intensely spiced variant, something their research had identified as ghost pepper sauce. Mira's translation matrix struggled to capture the complex emotional state. Is this a form of ritualized cellular self-destruction? Krell's response was measured, negative. This appears to be a form of social bonding. They are deliberately consuming substances that trigger maximum pain responses as a method of establishing social hierarchies and demonstrating individual resilience. The evening progressed with increasing scientific bewilderment. Humans consumed alcohol that would obliterate most neural networks. They ate spices that would trigger complete sensory system failure. They seemed to view potential biological threat as a form of recreational activity. But the true revelation came later that evening. As the human collective began to disperse, they engaged in another ritual entirely incomprehensible to the research team. Despite consuming substances that should have rendered them incapable of coherent movement, they somehow managed complex locomotion, engaged in sophisticated communication, and most bewilderingly, operated advanced transportation technologies. Hypothesis, Ricks announced, his computational matrix working overtime. Humans may not be a biological species. They might be some form of highly advanced pain-resistant, toxin-consuming performance art. Mira's response was a bioluminescent display that roughly translated to "or they're just spectacularly magnificently insane." Krell could only agree. Humanity was not just a species to be studied, they were a cosmic miracle of biological adaptation that defied every known scientific principle, and they were just getting started. The decision to attempt direct interaction was not made lightly. Research protocols for first contact scenarios typically involved years of preliminary observation, careful linguistic analysis, and meticulously planned communication strategies. The Quantitative Curiosities research team threw those protocols out the proverbial airlock. Dr. Aramis Krell had devised what he considered a perfectly rational approach to understanding human consumption habits. They would disguise themselves and directly engage with human subjects in their natural environment. Disguise was a generous term. Mira Volnek had spent 3 solar cycles developing what the team called a human simulation suit, a complex biomimetic environmental interface that was in reality about as subtle as a quantum explosion in a library. The suit was a masterpiece of technological improvisation. Holographic projection systems created a rough humanoid outline. Molecular adapters attempted to mimic human movement patterns. Linguistic matrices were calibrated to process and reproduce human communication patterns in real time. The result looked like what would happen if a disco ball, a malfunctioning robot, and a very confused octopus had a highly improbable offspring. Their chosen location, a place humans called a diner, a culinary establishment that seemed to specialize in consuming substances that defied every known nutritional principle. Ricks's computational matrix had spent 72 hours analyzing human interaction protocols. Recommended communication approach, he announced, involves minimal direct questioning and maximum casual interaction. Krell's crystalline structure pulsed with what could only be described as scientific excitement. Understood. We will blend in perfectly. They did not blend in perfectly. The first challenge came with something called a breakfast menu, a seemingly innocent document that was in fact a comprehensive catalog of molecular madness. Observe, Krell whispered to Mira, his holographic human projection flickering slightly. Humans voluntarily consume a substance called bacon, a preserved meat product with sodium levels that would cause immediate cardiovascular collapse in 1,247 known sentient species. Mira's bioluminescent translation matrix was working overtime. Her current display suggested a mixture of scientific fascination and existential terror. The waitress approached. Her name tag read Susan, a detail Ricks's linguistic matrix had already cross-referenced with 4,762 potential cultural and genealogical databases. "What can I get you?" Susan asked, her tone suggesting she had seen far stranger things than the 3 slightly off-kilter customers seated at her table. Krell's linguistic matrix processed the query. His response was a masterpiece of unintentional comedy. "We require nutritional sustenance in a manner consistent with local cultural consumption protocols," he announced, each word precisely enunciated. Susan blinked. "Coffee and pancakes." "Affirmative," Krell responded, his holographic human projection momentarily glitching to reveal a complex crystalline structure before resetting. The coffee arrived first, a substance so chemically complex that Ricks's initial analysis suggested it was closer to a controlled substance than a beverage. Caffeine concentration, astronomical. Molecular stability, questionable. Mira took the first sip, a term that did not adequately describe the complex molecular interaction happening between the liquid and her biomimetic suit's interface. Her bioluminescent display cycled through colors representing pure sensory overload. The translation matrix struggled to capture the experience. Molecular stimulation exceeds computational parameters. Extreme neural excitement detected. Krell observed the pancakes with scientific precision. Carbohydrate concentration, high. Sugar content, potentially weaponized. Butter quantity, violating multiple galactic nutritional guidelines. He took a bite. The next few moments were not captured in the official research logs, primarily because the ship's recording systems temporarily short-circuited from the sheer complexity of the molecular experience. Pancakes, it turned out, were not just a food, they were a religious experience. Hypothesis confirmed, Rix announced, his computational matrix working overtime. Humans have transformed nutritional intake into a form of sensory performance art. The waitress watched their increasingly bizarre interaction with the kind of practiced indifference that suggested she had seen far stranger things during her morning shift. As they prepared to exit, Krell attempted what humans called a casual interaction. "Greetings, fellow human," he announced to a nearby patron. "I find your species' nutritional consumption protocols to be most fascinating." The human mid-bite of a breakfast sandwich that would have triggered immediate medical intervention in 99.7% of known species, simply nodded. Rough morning? Mira's bioluminescent display suggested pure unadulterated scientific confusion. They had not blended in, not even slightly, but they had, without question, gained unprecedented insights into human culinary behavior. Humanity remained, as always, magnificently, inexplicably itself. The research vessel Quantitative Curiosity's central analysis chamber looked like the aftermath of a scientific hurricane. Holographic projections spiraled in complex three-dimensional matrices, each representing months of painstaking research into human consumption behaviors. Molecular diagrams, behavioral charts and biochemical analysis hung in the air like a monument to pure scientific bewilderment. Dr. Amiss Krell stood at the center of this maelstrom of information, his crystalline structure pulsing with what could only be described as academic euphoria. "Preliminary comprehensive report," he announced, his voice resonating through the ship's linguistic matrices, "represents the most significant xenobiological discovery in 17 millennia of galactic research." Rix's computational matrix had been working non-stop, processing billions of data points per microsecond. The silicon-based intelligence had long since passed what most species would consider the boundaries of scientific obsession. "Data compilation complete," Rix interjected. "Hypothesis: humans are not a biological species, they are a collective survival experiment that defies every known principle of organic existence." The comprehensive report was nothing short of extraordinary. Human consumption behavior. Comprehensive analysis section: Toxin consumption protocols. Alcohol consumption molecular toxicity rating, 9.7/10 standard biological response. Cellular destruction human response. Social bonding mechanism detailed observations. Humans deliberately consume ethanol-based liquids that would cause immediate neural network collapse in 1,247 known sentient species. Consumption is not merely nutritional, but serves complex social interaction purposes. Ability to metabolize and survive alcohol consumption suggests unprecedented metabolic adaptation. Theoretical implications: humans may possess a unique liver enzyme that transforms toxins into energy. Potential evolutionary adaptation that allows conversion of potentially lethal substances into functional biological resources. Possible indication of a species-wide biochemical modification program. Capsaicin consumption pain. Receptor activation index, 9.5/10 standard biological response. Complete sensory system shutdown human response. Competitive social interaction detailed observations. Humans voluntarily consume molecular compounds designed to trigger maximum pain receptors. Development of entire culinary traditions around pain-inducing substances. Competitive eating events that celebrate molecular assault on biological systems. Theoretical implications: a pain may serve as a social bonding mechanism. Potential neural pathway adaptation that transforms pain into pleasure. Evolutionary strategy that uses discomfort as a form of group selection. Caffeine consumption, neurological stimulation. Potential 9.2/10 standard biological response. Neural network overload, human response, productivity enhancement. Ritual detailed observations. Humans consume neural stimulants in quantities that would cause complete cognitive collapse in most species. Creation of entire economic and social structures around caffeine procurement and consumption. Ability to maintain complex cognitive functions under extreme neurological stimulation. Theoretical implications: a potential neural plasticity far beyond known biological parameters. Evolutionary adaptation that transforms potential neural threat into cognitive enhancement. biochemical mechanism that allows controlled neurological overstimulation. Section 2. Psychological adaptation mechanisms. Toxin consumption as social bonding. Humans transform potentially lethal substance consumption into complex social rituals. Shared consumption of hazardous substances creates group cohesion. Pain and discomfort used as positive social interaction mechanisms. Survival through adaptation, continuous ability to metabolize and survive substances that would destroy other biological systems. Psychological resilience that transforms potential threat into recreational activity. Complex cultural mechanisms that celebrate molecular challenges. Section 3. Evolutionary hypothesis. Primary conclusion. Humans represent an unprecedented biological anomaly, species that has transformed survival into a form of competitive performance art. Mira Valnek's bioluminescent display cycled through colors representing pure scientific revelation. Her translated commentary appeared, "They are not a species, they are a collective survival experiment." Krell's response was measured. Precisely. Humanity has taken the concept of biological adaptation and transformed it into something that defies every known scientific classification. The most terrifying and fascinating revelation was not just that humans survived these substances, but that they had culturally evolved to celebrate the very act of survival. Drinking was not just consumption, it was a demonstration of collective resilience. Spicy food was not just nutrition, it was a competitive exploration of biological limits. Caffeine was not just a stimulant, it was a cultural mechanism of productivity and social interaction. Final hypothesis. Ricks announced, his computational matrix reaching a conclusion that seemed to challenge the very foundations of biological understanding. Humans are not just surviving, they are continuously redefining the parameters of biological existence. Krell's crystalline structure pulsed with what could only be described as scientific excitement and profound respect. Humanity was not just a species to be studied, they were a cosmic miracle of adaptation, and they were just getting started. Official research document. Galactic Academic Consortium Xenobiological Research Division classification unprecedented, submitted by Dr. Aramis Krell, lead researcher. Researcher Mira Valnek and Xenozoological Specialist Computational Analyst. Ricks Primary Data Processor. Executive Summary. After 3.7 standard galactic cycles of comprehensive research, the Quantitative Curiosity Research Team submits the following conclusive report on human species classification. Humanity cannot be classified. Humanity can only be witnessed. Detailed recommendation. Recommendation 1. Immediate reclassification of human species. Current biological classification. Insufficient proposed classification. Survival performance. Artists' research highlights metabolic anomalies. Humans consistently demonstrate the ability to consume substances that would obliterate 1,247 known sentient species. Transform potential cellular destruction into social bonding. Experiences metabolize toxins as if they were nutritional supplements. Psychological adaptation mechanisms. Humans have developed pain as a recreational activity, toxin consumption as a competitive sport, survival itself as a form of cultural expression. Evolutionary unpredictability observed. Capabilities. Metabolic flexibility beyond comprehension. Neural network resilience that defies mathematical probability. Ability to transform potential biological threats into cultural experiences. Personal research notes. Dr. Aramis Krell's final personal log. When we began this research, we believed we were studying a species. We were wrong. We were witnessing the most extraordinary example of biological adaptation in documented galactic history. Humans do not merely survive, they celebrate survival as an art form. Researcher Mira Valnek's supplementary commentary. Our initial hypothesis suggested humans were a rational biological entity. Our conclusion proves they are anything but rational, they are magnificent. Computational analyst Ricks's mathematical assessment. Probability of human species, survival. Traditional biological models, 0.00003% observed actual performance, 99.9999, 7% UN expected discoveries, top 5 human consumption behaviors that defy scientific understanding, alcohol consumption potential cellular destruction, 9.7/10 actual human response, social bonding ritual spicy, food consumption pain receptor activation, 9.5/1 null actual human response, competitive entertainment caffeine intake neural network overload, potential 9.2/1 null actual human response, productivity enhancement processed meat consumption carcinogen, concentration astronomical actual human Response culinary celebration energy. Drink consumption molecular instability. Extreme actual human response. Performance enhancement final recommendation after extensive research. The Quantitative Curiosity Research Team submits the following recommendations to the Galactic Academic Consortium. Do not attempt direct intervention with human species. Observe from a safe distance. Prepare for potential future interactions with utmost humility and respect. Humanity is not a species to be studied. Humanity is a force of nature to be witnessed. Concluding personal reflection. Dr. Aramis Krell. In 17 millennia of galactic research, we have documented countless species. We have catalogued millions of biological variations. We have observed evolution in its most intricate forms. But humans are different. They do not conform to scientific understanding. They expand it. They do not survive despite the odds. They survive by turning the odds into a celebration. They are not just a species. They are a cosmic miracle. And they are just getting started. Research concluded. Universe, prepare yourself. Submitted to the Galactic Academic Consortium Research Vessel Quantitative Curiosity Stellar Cycle 7429. Beta.